Hello to the loyal companions of Armory Edits. I hope you're all doing well and ready for an unbelievable story. A question before we start. How many fighter jets do you think could go deep into enemy territory, destroy 48 aircraft, and return safely? Imagine an air base, 1,200 kilometers beyond the border, deep inside enemy land. 8 fighter jets, without the enemy even noticing. Go there, destroy 48 aircraft inside their hangars, and come back home without a single scratch. No, this isn't a Top Gun script. This is a real operation that few have ever heard of. Today, I'm going to tell you exactly how it was possible. Watch till the end and comment below. Which country do you think pulled this off?
Perhaps you've wondered how such an operation could even be possible. To answer that question, we need to go back to 1980, the year one of the longest and most full-scale wars in the Middle East began, a war between Iran and Iraq. Saddam Hussein, the then president of Iraq, launched this invasion based on the assessments of his military experts. His analysts had told him that the Iranian Air Force had been effectively crippled after the Islamic Revolution. Why? Because Iran had dismissed all American advisors and foreign technicians, and without daily technical support, the fighter jets were practically unusable. They claimed that even after a single mission, certain parts of the aircraft had to be replaced, and without American technicians, this was nearly impossible. At first glance, their analysis seemed correct. Even Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Khamenei, who at the time was the representative of the late leader, Ayatollah Khomeini, on the Supreme National Defense Council, commented on the state of the Air Force and confirmed the analysts' assessments, saying,
اون روزی که جنگ تحمیلی شروع شد همه صاحب نظران، همه تحلیلگران، همه نخبگان به طور قاطع میگفتن صدام در این جنگ پیروزه و ایران شکست خورده است. گفتم ببینید این هواپیماهای ما ایناست. مثلا F5 F4 نمیدونم 330 چی انواع هواپیماهای نظامی و یعنی نظامی ترابری و جنگی یه 7-8 نوع نوشته بودن این تا فلان روز تمام میشه آمادگیش. یعنی ما بعد از 31 روز جمهوری اسلامی مطلقاً وسیله پرنده هوایی دیگه نخواهد داشت. خلاص.
So, with all of this in mind, a question naturally arises. Despite all these negative analyses, how did Iran not only keep its air force from being crippled, but with that very same air force, without foreign technicians, and without parts that were supposed to be replaced after every mission, managed to carry out one of the boldest and greatest aerial operations in the world, an operation that even today remains unparalleled in its kind? Before I answer that question, let me first introduce you to this operation, the one that later came to be known as Operation H3. Once you know the details, you'll be able to better understand the depth of intelligence, planning, and power of the Iranian Air Force in that historic strike. During the years of the Iran-Iraq War, the H3 air bases in western Iraq functioned as a strategic stronghold for the Iraqi Air Force. This complex actually consisted of 3 separate air bases: the main Al-Walid base, the Northwest base, and the Southwest base. The geographical location of these bases was such that Iraqi fighters could strike Iranian infrastructure and civilian areas without fear of retaliation, because it was believed that the long distance from the border had placed them completely beyond the reach of Iranian pilots. However, at the Iranian command headquarters, this situation was assessed as a strategic deadlock. Military commanders concluded to shift the balance of power and halt the attacks. They had to break through this geographical security barrier. They decided to infiltrate the Eagle's Nest. At 10:30 a.m. on April 4th, 1981, the operation began with the takeoff of 10 F-4E Phantom fighter jets from Hamedan Air Base. Simultaneously, 3 F-5 fighters from Tabriz Air Base were assigned to carry out a large-scale diversionary maneuver, heading directly toward the Kirkuk refinery and military installations in northern Iraq. These fighters engaged the area's air defenses intentionally, generating heavy radar noise and causing such panic in the northern Iraqi defense system that Iraqi commanders assumed this was the main attack. As a result, all missile sites and interceptor patrols were drawn northward, and the Western Flight Corridor, the main route for the Phantoms, remained hidden from the enemy. However, the most difficult part of the mission began after aerial refueling at an unstable altitude of 10,000 to 15,000 feet. After separating from the tankers, the pilots faced challenges that threatened the survival of the entire operation. They were forced to maintain absolute radio silence, communicating only through hand signals. To evade enemy radar, the Phantoms had to fly at dangerously low altitudes, just 20 to 30 meters above the ground. At this altitude, high speeds, desert dust reducing visibility, and the natural terrain features placed immense psychological pressure on the pilots. Moreover, they were advancing through unknown territory, constantly worried about remaining fuel and the possibility of encountering enemy air patrols. Despite all these dangers, and relying on their flying skill and precise guidance, they pressed on. When the Phantoms neared the H-3 airbase complex, they suddenly gained altitude to find the optimal bombing angle. The Iraqis had no idea of the Iranian aircraft's presence until the very moment the bombs were released. Within minutes, a firestorm engulfed the base, and approximately 48 military aircraft, including strategic Tu-22 bombers, were destroyed. When the first explosions hit, the Iraqi command center was thrown into absolute shock. Iraqi military officials couldn't believe that Iranian Phantoms had traveled such a distance. In those initial moments, the thought crossed their minds that perhaps another country, like Israel or an extra-regional power, had carried out the attack. They found it extremely hard to accept that the Iranian Air Force could have delivered such a blow. This defeat came at a heavy cost to Iraq's defense system. Saddam Hussein's anger flared up immediately, and the air defense commander for the western region, who was responsible for protecting these bases, was quickly dismissed and executed for negligence in guarding the Eagle's nest. In the end, with Iraqi air defenses in complete disarray, all 8 Iranian Phantoms managed to return safely to Iranian soil, despite being pursued by enemy patrols on their way back and having to refuel in midair once again. This operation not only severely diminished Iraq's long-range combat capability, but also completely shifted the balance of aerial power in the war in Iran's favor. Now, let's turn to the main question we started with. How did Iran, without American advisors or technicians, and despite arms embargoes, managed to carry out such a massive aerial operation, one that remains unparalleled in the world? When the last American advisors left Iran in 1979, many Western military analysts confidently declared the Iranian Air Force will only last a few more months in the sky. They believed that without the hidden hands of manufacturer technicians and access to original spare parts, Iran's modern F-4 Phantoms and F-14 Tomcats would soon become useless scrap metal. But they had overlooked one variable in their equations: the dormant genius of Iranian specialists. When the war began in September 1980, the Iranian Air Force faced a dire situation. Warehouses were depleting, and no parts were being officially imported. But within the dark hangars of air bases, a movement arose, one they named Jihad of Self-Sufficiency. Iranian technicians who for years had, under the shadow of American advisors, traced every bolt and wire of these iron giants, now took charge themselves. They devised a method that might sound strange in technical literature, one the pilots jokingly called cannibalism. If a Phantom was grounded due to engine failure, they would use the engine from another Phantom that had airframe damage. They rebuilt parts with surgeon-like precision, and through reverse engineering, manufactured the most complex electronic components. Alongside this domestic effort, a secret and intricate network of intermediaries had also been activated. Iranian buyers, operating in global black arms markets, acquired parts that the West had refused to sell at exorbitant prices and through perilous routes. Every piece that arrived at the hangar was like oxygen, keeping a Phantom alive for one more flight. But beyond parts and metal, what made H-3 possible was aerial knowledge. Iranian pilots, products of the stringent training of previous decades, knew exactly what angle was needed for mid-air refueling at high altitudes, and how close to the ground they had to fly to evade radar. For Operation H-3, they didn't need the world's latest technology. They needed mathematical precision and individual courage. The operations planners, Colonel Baham Hushiar and Colonel Farajola Baratpour, rather than relying on complex software, mapped out a route on simple paper with meticulous mental calculations, one that no radar had ever anticipated. They took to the skies an aircraft that, according to their American manufacturers, should have been grounded a decade earlier. Ultimately, when those 10 Phantoms took off from Hamedan's runway on April 4, 1981, they were not just 10 aircraft. They were a combination of engineered parts, indigenous knowledge, the will of tireless technicians, and the audacity of pilots who proved that when foreign technology is removed, human creativity emerges with multiplied power. They turned H-3 into one of the most legendary operations in world history, not through the West's help, but through resistance against the West's limitations.
This is the story of warriors whose names, though seldom mentioned, have been the brightest stars in the sky of world aviation history. Now it's your turn. Had you ever heard of this operation before today? Let me know in the comments. Which part did you find most fascinating? If you'd like to see more videos on the history of world military aviation, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon. Until the next video, may the sky be blue and full of pride.